Recently, the topic that cannot be avoided is ChatGPT. It can obtain medical licenses in the United States, participate in judicial examinations, write novels, code, and search for information. It seems that anything that can be expressed in words, it can do it all. How did this thing suddenly emerge? There were chatbots before. Why does it feel like it is going to subvert the world? The capital circle is so excited. What are its problems? How will the giants respond? Who will it make unemployed? Although Ben Cat is not an expert in artificial intelligence, today we will piece together these fragmented pieces of information and talk about what you need to know about ChatGPT. We need to trace back to 1950 to talk about this chatbot. At that time, Alan Turing, known as the father of computer science and artificial intelligence, published a groundbreaking paper proposing a philosophical idea called the imitation game. This is what we now know as the Turing test, which asks whether a person can accurately determine whether they are talking to a human or a machine when communicating through text. If it is difficult to tell, then to some extent, the machine can be considered intelligent. Do you think the Turing test is simple, easy to understand, concrete, and interesting? That's why it has attracted many computer scientists to challenge it. However, at the beginning, the instructions were very simple, and it used some language skills, or little cleverness, to make you feel like you're talking to a person. For example, in 1966, the MIT lab invented a chatbot called Eliza. The developer was very clever and set Eliza as a psychotherapist. As psychotherapists usually listen more and speak less, it could ask you, "Do you have any thoughts?" And you could talk a lot. Then it could ask, "How did you sleep yesterday?" And you could talk a lot again. It spoke less, so it made fewer mistakes, so it really made people think it was listening and communicating with them. But behind it, it was just some simple if, then code. For example, when it sees the word mother, it would ask you to talk about your family. There are about 200 keywords like this. 30 years later, in 1995, Eliza's successor, ALICE, came out, and it had evolved to be very powerful. Although it cannot be compared with ChatGPT, it can handle many daily conversations. However, fundamentally, both Eliza and ALICE are based on a principle called pattern matching. You mentioned the Turing test earlier. It is a test of a machine's ability to exhibit intelligent behavior that is indistinguishable from that of a human. It was proposed by Alan Turing in 1950 and has attracted many computer scientists who have attempted to pass the test by using various language techniques to make the machine appear as human-like as possible. For example, in 1966, the MIT laboratory created a chatbot called Eliza, which was designed to mimic a psychotherapist. Eliza was programmed to ask open-ended questions and respond in a way that made it seem like it was listening and engaging in a conversation with the user, even though it was based on simple if-then code. Later versions of Eliza, such as ALICE in 1995, were able to handle more complex conversations, but the underlying principle of pattern matching remained the same. When the chatbot detects a keyword, it retrieves a preset response. This approach is still used today by some shopping websites and banks, where chatbots are used to handle routine queries. However, this kind of pattern matching chatbot is limited in its ability to generate new responses and handle more complex conversations. To truly pass the Turing test and become intelligent, chatbots need to be able to learn and adapt to new situations. This is where machine learning comes in. Machine learning is a branch of artificial intelligence that allows machines to learn from data and improve their performance over time. Instead of relying on preset rules and responses, machine learning algorithms learn from a large dataset and find patterns that can be used to make predictions or generate new responses. This approach is more flexible and can handle a wider range of situations. Smarter Child, a chatbot that was launched in 2001, was one of the first chatbots to use machine learning. It was able to learn from the conversations it had with users and improve its responses over time. This marked a significant step forward in the development of chatbots and paved the way for more advanced chatbots that we see today. Why was it popular? First of all, it used some advanced machine learning models at the time to make conversations more natural. In the year 2000, there was a rise of chat software platforms such as AOL, Windows, Yahoo, and Smart Child. This allowed millions of people worldwide to converse with it, no matter what they asked. It could be considered the predecessor to ChatGPT. With its entertaining and engaging capabilities, it quickly became popular, attracting over 30 million users who sent over 1 billion messages daily. In 2007, it was acquired by Microsoft, who had been eyeing this area for some time. Although it was already good at conversing, it was still a long way from passing the Turing test. It was evident that it was a machine when conversing with it. However, in 2010, a field in machine learning called artificial neural networks started to shine. The idea was to simulate the human brain with over 100 billion neurons linked in a web-like structure to judge and transfer information. Although the concept had existed since the 1960s, it required vast amounts of data and computing power, which was only available in the 2010s. This network was found to be particularly useful for solving problems that people could quickly recognize through intuition, such as identifying faces. It would have been extremely difficult for a computer to identify this person beforehand, but with this neural network and machine learning, it can slowly discover patterns. Its applications are now very extensive, not just limited to facial recognition, but also include speech recognition, autonomous driving, and even defeating world champions in Go, such as AlphaGo did a few years ago. However, in the field of language, the development of this neural network has not been as smooth. This is because it typically uses a type of recurrent neural network, RNN, to process text, which handles one word at a time in order. The problem is that it cannot simultaneously conduct a large amount of learning, and sentences cannot be too long, or the model will forget the beginning by the end. In 2017, Google published a paper proposing a new learning framework called Transformer, which addresses this issue. The mechanism is complex, but it allows machines to learn a large amount of text simultaneously. This is unlike before, where you had to learn each word one by one, like a series of circuits connected in sequence. Now, you can learn them simultaneously, like parallel circuits. This greatly improves training speed and efficiency. With this transformer, machines have made rapid progress in language learning. Many natural language processing models are built on its foundation, such as the T in Google's BERT and ChatGPT's T now. With these technological breakthroughs, everything is ready, all that's missing is people and money. It's time for ChatGPT to make its debut. In 2015, several big names including Elon Musk and Peter Thiel invested $1 billion to establish a non-profit organization called OpenAI to conduct AI research. OpenAI's research results, including patents, are all publicly available. The organization aims to promote the development of AI technology, not to make a profit. Musk gradually realized that Tesla also needed a significant investment in AI research, such as for autonomous driving, to avoid conflicts of interest between Tesla and OpenAI. Therefore, in 2018, he resigned from the board of OpenAI, 3 years after its establishment, to focus on his work at Tesla. As a result, the relationship between OpenAI and Musk has become relatively insignificant. The researchers at OpenAI are highly skilled, and in 2018, they published a paper introducing a new language learning model based on Google's Transformer. Unlike previous language learning models that required human supervision or labeling, the new GPT model could learn without much human intervention. You could feed a large amount of data into the model, and it could understand the language without human intervention. In June 2018, OpenAI launched the first generation of GPT, followed by GPT-2 in November 2019, which used a more massive amount of training data. Machine learning mainly depends on two things: the model and the number of parameters. The model determines how the machine learns, and the number of parameters requires a significant amount of computation, which requires a lot of money. Therefore, even if the model is excellent, it also requires a lot of money to train and validate it. The OpenAI team has confidence in their model, but the next step requires more money. Every time they make progress, they need a significant amount of data to support it. For example, DeepMind, the company that developed AlphaGo, spends $400 to $500 million annually. Initially, the $1 billion investment in OpenAI was insufficient to cover all expenses. At this point, OpenAI was still a non-profit organization. Musk had also left, and the previous $1 billion in funding was not enough due to the pressure of funding. Therefore, in 2019, OpenAI transitioned from a non-profit to a for-profit organization, but it did not directly become a profitable organization. It became a profit-capped organization, meaning that the return on investment for any investor cannot exceed 100 times. Any return on investment beyond 100 times goes to OpenAI itself. However, if an investor withdraws their investment before the return reaches 100 times, they can reinvest and potentially receive another 100-fold return. In any case, OpenAI became a for-profit organization, meaning that investors can now receive returns on their investment. Microsoft immediately stepped in and invested $1 billion, which was a win-win for both parties. OpenAI received money, and Microsoft built a 5th-ranked supercomputer globally, greatly improving OpenAI's training efficiency. Microsoft also gained access to OpenAI's technology and team. However, OpenAI's research results will no longer be made public. With the financial and computational support, OpenAI was ready to make a breakthrough. Its first-generation model had only 120 million parameters, which increased to 1.5 billion with GPT-2. 6 months later, OpenAI launched GPT-3, which had 175 billion parameters, a 100-fold increase. The results were impressive, as evidenced by the current ChatGPT. It can answer almost any question. However, the problem with this purely machine-trained GPT-3 is that sometimes it answers well, and sometimes it misses the mark. The issue is that no one told it what is good or bad. Therefore, OpenAI added a human feedback mechanism during training, known as human feedback reinforcement learning. This mechanism helps improve the model's accuracy and performance. Therefore, when using ChatGPT, you may notice that it can sometimes be eloquent and able to hold a conversation very well. However, this is due to the preferences of those who trained it. If someone trained it with a good sense of humor, ChatGPT might tell jokes all the time. Anyway, after incorporating the human feedback reinforcement learning, both the efficiency and effectiveness of the training were greatly improved. In March 2022, GPT 3.5 was released, which further optimized the dialogue feature. In November 2022, ChatGPT was launched, which is a very simple and rough chat interface. However, no matter what you ask it, it can give you a plausible and coherent answer. After half a century of development, ChatGPT has undoubtedly overturned the cognition of most people, including myself, on chatbots. In just 2 months, ChatGPT's monthly active users exceeded 100 million, making it the fastest growing product in history. Although various data are impressive, the shock that ChatGPT brings to people far exceeds those numbers. Even now, when I see it answering questions bit by bit like a person, I still get goosebumps. However, I estimate that 1 year from now, people will be used to seeing this kind of thing. Alright, let's take a look at how ChatGPT works. Essentially, it is a large language model, similar to GPT, that is capable of generating the next word or sentence in a given context based on probabilities. For example, if the context is I am feeling, the model may predict that the most likely continuation is happy or sad or hungry, based on its analysis of similar language patterns in its massive database of words and sentences. The model learns to generate responses by finding patterns in the massive amount of text it has been trained on, which consists of billions of words and sentences. As it learns more, it forms a large neural network that is capable of generating responses based on context, without explicit programming or rules. However, it is important to note that the model does not understand the meaning behind the words it generates, it simply generates responses based on statistical patterns it has learned. While ChatGPT can generate responses that seem very human-like, it still makes logical and ethical errors from time to time. This is because it is still just a language model, and does not truly understand the concepts and nuances of human language and behavior. However, all this nonsense is actually a problem with the current version of ChatGPT. Although right now it may just be a simple imitation, as it becomes more and more sophisticated, there is a 99.9% chance that it can answer correctly. The question then becomes whether it truly understands or is just purely mimicking. In fact, this is a question that Turing discussed in his paper on the Turing test. Rather than asking if machines can think like humans, it is better to ask if machines can do the things that humans do. This has some depth to it. In my opinion, one of the major breakthroughs of ChatGPT is that it greatly improves the efficiency of communication between humans and machines. The primary way that humans communicate information is through text, while computers use code. Previously, humans had to accommodate computers by first learning to program and then encoding their thoughts into a language that computers could understand before allowing them to execute tasks, including searches. Now, computers can slowly understand human language, allowing us to speak to them directly and have them translate and execute tasks for us. While many people find ChatGPT to be amazing because it seems to know everything, its true wonder lies not in its ability to execute tasks, but rather in its ability to accurately understand the question and extract the most appropriate information from its vast database, contextualize it, and then convey it in human language. This communication process is where its true magic lies. Having such a powerful interface means that we can delegate many tasks to machines with ease, greatly increasing efficiency. Imagine if we could use it in conjunction with a language recognition system like Siri and allow it to freely converse with us. Then, we could link it up to various specialized analysis interfaces such as AI stock analysis, programming, and robot calculations, as well as a visual generation component. This would allow everyone to be like the Iron Man and his assistant in the movies. For example, we could ask it to calculate something related to a Mobius loop, and it would perform the calculation and we could respond with amazing. You see, this ChatGPT has opened up so many possibilities all at once, and it's already so popular. So its major shareholder, Microsoft, must be thrilled, right? They quickly invested $10 billion in OpenAI in January, announcing a valuation of $29 billion. And this time, the deal that Microsoft signed with OpenAI is quite interesting. After investing $10 billion, 75% of OpenAI's profits must first be given to Microsoft until the $10 billion is returned. Microsoft also holds 49% of OpenAI's shares, and there may be a 100x return on investment cap. This unique deal was reached, and on February 7th, Microsoft held a press conference to announce that they will integrate ChatGPT into their search engine Bing, calling it Copilot for the web. It's essentially a web assistant. The problem with ChatGPT is that the data it's trained on only goes up to 2021, meaning it doesn't know about recent events. But with Microsoft's integration with Bing, it's a powerful combination. For example, I can use ChatGPT for logical questions, and if I need information or news, I can use Bing. It's a strong collaboration. If I ask ChatGPT if it knows about Ben Cat, it can only say it doesn't know. But if I ask Bing, it will say that Ben Cat is an interesting and useful content creator and a good role model for many people pursuing their dreams. It's almost embarrassing to hear. So there is a reason why it's so popular, and Microsoft is quite cunning. This chat function must be used with their Edge browser. I have to say, this marketing and publicity effort deserves a full score. Okay, facing this overwhelming promotion, the one that is probably the most panicked is Google. Why? Because ChatGPT could potentially disrupt their biggest piece of the pie, which is search. If I can ask ChatGPT and it can organize the language to tell me what I need, then I don't need to search and look for it myself. I can just ask ChatGPT, right? Then no one would use search engines anymore. You have to know that Google currently occupies 93% of the global search market share, which is a solid monopoly. Even though Microsoft's Bing ranks second, it only has 3%. The advertising revenue brought by the search business can account for 60% of Google's total revenue. So you can see that everyone was doing well, and then suddenly ChatGPT appeared out of nowhere. In fact, Google has been a leader in the field of artificial intelligence all along. You see that Transformer, it was developed by Google. It has actually been in internal testing, with a robot called BERT, which is similar to ChatGPT, except that it didn't spend a lot of effort to train it. It actually has another robot that is even more powerful, called LaMDA. It is entirely based on normal human conversation, so it even jokes or expresses its emotions, not just giving simple answers when you ask it. It's because its speech is so natural that it even fooled an employee who was testing it internally at Google, who believed that LaMDA had already developed its own consciousness, almost like a 7 or 8-year-old child. So Google has actually been strong in the chatbot field all along, but its position is completely different from Microsoft's. You see, Google is already the king of search, and it just wanted to create a robot and cut down its cash cow. It wouldn't do it unless it was absolutely necessary. So that's why, in my estimation, its LaMDA is more focused on conversation and chatting, rather than being like ChatGPT, which can answer any question. And it has been holding back these AI robots, also because it's concerned about its reputation risk. Google is after all in search, and it wants accuracy and rigor. If you launch a poorly trained, nonsensical robot, that would be unacceptable. On the other hand, large-scale training like this requires a lot of computational power and money. The energy consumption for each question is approximately 10 to 100 times that of a Google search. Models like ChatGPT require about $1 million per day to run. So, you can see why Microsoft's early advantage was a smart move, not only investing in the right company, but also having the ability to spend big money. Facing intense public pressure and widespread media coverage, Google couldn't just sit still. Soon after ChatGPT was launched, Google announced an internal code red warning that this was a critical moment for the company's survival. They had to concentrate all their efforts on AI to stay competitive because speed was of the essence. How fast, you ask? fast enough to make Google twist its own waist. As we mentioned earlier, Microsoft's conference was on February 7th, where they announced integrating ChatGPT into their search engine. On February 8th, Google hastily held a conference and announced their own conversational service called Bard, which was developed based on their newly launched conversational AI, LaMDA. You can tell how badly Google's conference went by looking at the stock prices of both companies after the conference. This industry is strange indeed. You don't need any professional analysis to see why. Just watch both conferences from start to finish, and you'll know why. Everyone is focused on the AI chatbot aspect, but Google spent the first 40 minutes talking about their past achievements, image search, and an embarrassing moment where the presenter couldn't find their phone to demonstrate a feature. Later, after finally getting to the point, they began introducing this Bard. However, they only talked about it for a few minutes, and during the Google press conference, they also released a video introducing Bard, which unfortunately contained factual errors in Bard's responses. In truth, with chatbots like these, if they make a factual error, it's understandable. But if the answers in your advertisement haven't been fact-checked and you forget your phone and try to brush it off, it's easy to see the haste and panic from Google, which is what the market is concerned about. Although ChatGPT is quite impressive, everyone knows that Google is a powerhouse in the AI field. So even if you don't say much in a short amount of time, external parties probably know that you're not to be messed with, and you're probably holding back some big moves. You can see that Google issued a red alert, which may be to let external parties know that they take this matter seriously, and to not rush to sell their stocks. Therefore, before the press conference, Google's stock price was not much worse off than Microsoft's, but they had to rush and create such a scene, which made them appear somewhat nervous. As a result, Google's market value evaporated by $100 billion. However, compared to Google, Microsoft was more stable. You can see that Microsoft's CEO and OpenAI's CEO both came out to personally explain during the nearly one-hour press conference, which focused on the AI chat feature and included various demonstrations. It was obvious that they were well prepared. This AI war has just begun, and Google was caught off guard by ChatGPT, then panicked and made a low-level mistake. So, in this first battle, they suffered a humiliating defeat. But after all, Google is still Google, so what will happen next? We'll just have to wait and see. Of course, this AI war is not limited to just these two companies. Companies like Meta, Baidu, Tencent, and Alibaba are all rushing to enter the field. Any stock related to generative AI is skyrocketing. Companies like Nvidia and AMD, which provide computing power infrastructure, are also benefiting. In fact, generative AI in areas such as chatbots, artwork, and programming has seen explosive growth in the past 2 years. The amount of funding in this direction has been soaring since 2021 and 2022, with annual amounts exceeding billions of dollars. At the beginning of 2023, Microsoft invested $100 billion in this field. Capital has done its best, pouring into this race. Well, with such rapid development, will it cause many people to lose their jobs? Who will lose their jobs? Will it cause you to lose your job? Technological innovation is always a double-edged sword. It may create more jobs and may not necessarily reduce the unemployment rate. Overall GDP may still increase by 80%, but in the short term, it will certainly lead to the unemployment of some people. I am thinking about how we can avoid losing our jobs as much as possible and even use this AI tool to improve our productivity. My personal conclusion is that we must try to avoid routine work, such as the repetitive work that computers solved when they first came out. Now, not only is there repetitive work, but there is also routine work that may not require much brainpower as long as you have a routine. Even if you feel like you are creating something new every day, in reality, machines can master it in minutes. What is meant by routine work? Let me give you an example. Suppose I ask ChatGPT to write a fairy tale story about Ben Cat. It might say that Ben Cat is a talking cat that defeats a dragon, saves a princess, and becomes a hero. Then I tell it that it's wrong and that Ben Cat is a female. It would then rewrite the story to say that Ben Cat is a talking female cat that defeats an evil witch and becomes a hero. This is an example of the routine in fairy tales where there is a talking animal that defeats something and becomes a hero. Although the talking cat has no real role in the story, it is a staple of fairy tales. Similarly, there are some highly skilled engineers who can code without even looking, or writers who can write 20 stories in a day, or accountants who can quickly complete basic financial reports, designs, or legal advice, etc. These tasks can be done almost blindly because they have become routine. Now that AI has learned these routines, you no longer need to do them with your eyes closed. Note that I am not saying that programmers, accountants, writers, analysts, and so on will be replaced entirely. It's just that the routine parts of their work will eventually be learned by machines. So, if you feel that your work involves routine, you need to be careful. At the very least, you should not post these routines online as it may cause AI to learn them. In fact, not only does this have implications for unemployment, but it is also extremely disruptive. We can see the enormous impact it has already had on society. For example, school education. Within a few months of its launch, more than 90% of US students aged 18 and over have used ChatGPT to help them with their homework. And it can pretty much do any subject except for physical education. How do I know if the work is original or not? Of course, I don't. It's not that we can't use it to help us, it's just that our education system isn't ready for ChatGPT yet. The disruptive nature of this technology is like building a comprehensive transportation system over hundreds of years, only to suddenly have all cars flying. In the long run, flying cars are undoubtedly a good technology, but in the short term, until we have a complete new system, chaos ensues. If this happens, social order will be greatly disturbed. So, you see, for institutions like schools or companies, they may not know how to integrate ChatGPT into their existing systems. Therefore, they may resort to an all-or-nothing approach by simply banning everything, including content generated by AI like ChatGPT. It becomes a difficult issue to determine who owns the copyrights of the content produced by AI. The future of generative AI is unpredictable, and the ChatGPT team didn't have any specific goals when they first started. They simply fed data into the machine and let it learn. It wasn't until later that they discovered just how powerful it could be and how it could connect with search engines. Everyone is essentially feeling their way in the dark, and we don't know when AI will suddenly have a breakthrough in a particular field. Sometimes, I feel excited to witness the amazing development of AI. It's like we're slowly opening Pandora's box.